Okay, let's talk about how to get the total number of story points in a frame or a container in Lucid. Now, I'm going to do this with generic Lucid cards, but if you wanted to adapt it into something like Jira, you could pretty easily do that with some slight changes to the formula. Okay, I am actually going to switch back to Lucidspark quickly, just so people can see where you might get started here. So in Lucidspark, this is where you're going to find things like Lucid cards, where you are going to find things like frames and sort of these basic containers that I'm using here. Now, something to note is that when I want to actually go add these formulas, it's easiest to go do this in Lucidchart. So I am simply going to switch the canvas from Lucidchart to Lucidspark because I am on an enterprise account. Why did I do this? Well, in Lucidchart, it's a little bit easier to work with formulas and custom data. So I'm opening up this context panel here where I can actually add my formulas. It also is going to allow me to use conditional formatting. So I'm going to show a couple methods here of getting the sort of total number of story points. So the first thing to know, and I'll start with just sort of a basic container instead of the frame, is that containers and frames can be aware of what is inside of them. So if I drag this out, it's going to say 5. If I drag it in, it's going to say 9. You'll notice that this card currently has 4 as its estimate. If I were to up that estimate, I'm going to get a different answer in that total. Now, if I look at my container here, what I've done is I've added a custom data property by opening up that context panel, choosing the data tab, and I've just added a property there. Now, I already have my formula here. I'm saying contained dot estimate and wrapping that in a sum function. So Lucid has a great formula system. If I wanted to just sort of do this live for you, what I'm looking for is contained is going to give me everything that is inside the container. You can actually see that there. Dot notation lets me grab different properties. Now on generic Lucid cards, the story points is called estimate. So I can just use that, and that's going to give me the list of different estimates, 6 and 2 and 3, and then I can just put these in a sum. So this is quite similar to JavaScript or Excel. That gives me my total, and then the other thing that I did was I double-clicked my text that is on the container, and I hovered over and I did this plus T. This inserts the text. Make sure you hover over the value you're inserting, and that's basically just going to give me the total. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I don't need it double, and I'm going to get rid of my property here. I also could have named this like total story points, whatever I want to call it. So quite basically, that's how you would do it with a container. Okay, now let's look at it with a frame. I'm going to do the same thing here. It's going to give me 51, and I can insert that formula there. So I am now showing that this has 51 story, story, oh my goodness, story points. There we go. And if I were to start moving these out, I would see that behave just a little bit differently. So the card actually has to be inside the frame for me to count it. Just a note, it is thinking about it from sort of the top right corner. So if it's sort of halfway out of the frame or the container, keep in mind it's going to consider it in until that top right corner is gone. But basically, that is how you could do that. Now, I am showing a couple other methods here. One is using a conditional formatting rule. So I actually have a rule here that is saying if shape type is frame, then display an icon, and I'm asking it to sum up the number of story points there, and that's using a special text badge, and it's using not custom text but a formula, and that's then going to display something. I'm just going to get rid of that. Total story points in frame, and it's going to display that number also on hover. So that is a smaller option if you didn't want it in the title. And then another option here, I actually have a whole separate shape here. And if I take it out of the frame, it breaks. But this is just a little shape that I have inside the frame, and it is doing sort of a different reference here. It is actually saying, what am I contained by? And get the first item in that list, which is the only frame that it's in this case. Get everything that's contained by the frame that I am contained by, and then get the estimate and sum it up. So this one is doing a little bit of, awkward referencing in that it's saying, okay, I'm contained by this, now show me everything that is inside that frame. But it does mean that I can now move this around a little bit. It's not actually tied to the frame title. So that is just one other option here. If you were looking to say, hey, I don't necessarily want it in the title of my frame, which is sometimes the case. Having it in the title can be a little bit confusing sometimes. And it may not be ideal, so I do recommend this as an option if you don't want it in the actual title here. So you now have everything in your frame. If we were to adjust the story points, so let's increase our estimate, then I'm going to see those things change. I can still access my table of contents here, my frame, and find it. And I can actually turn this into a template and share it with my team, and we can then insert it at any time through the template picker in the created by me or shared with me section of the frame. So this is a nice, easy way to ensure that you can reuse these shapes or frames or formulas and always know sort of what is inside them and what the total points are. And same thing with containers.